for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I'm your co-host.
And I'm Katy Steele Baroni, filling in for Jack Prince.
Well, Katy, we've got a lot to talk about. We are recording on Friday, October 2nd, 2020, and we've had breaking news since last night. Donald Trump announced on his Twitter account that supposedly him and Melania both have contracted the coronavirus. I say allegedly, and I'll explain why once we get through our introductions here. Because, truthfully, I don't believe him, and I'll explain why. But right now, if you want to follow us on Facebook, you can do so, facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. We're on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. We're on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can find us on YouTube. Do a search for Southpaws Radio there. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker.com. Do a search for Southpaws. You can find us at Apple Podcasts. Search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. And links to our podcast are sent to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI-FM in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, Global Community Radio Channel 1. We're on Saturday night at 11 p.m., so make sure you check us out there. Yeah, so apparently last night there was a breaking news alert that Trump advisor Hope Hicks had tested positive for the coronavirus. And Trump tweeted out that him and Melania were waiting results of their test. 2 hours later, Trump gets on Twitter and says, we're positive.
Yeah.
So
I don't believe anything he says, so there's that. Everything he says, you have to question what his possible agenda might be or what comes next. Yeah. And it's so far off the wall, nobody really ever knows what to think. But, I mean, we've all got our fingers crossed. We've all got our fingers crossed that he's not lying this time.
Oh, God. Well, here's the thing about it. There's a couple of reasons why I think this is a lie. Number one, Trump is a known liar. He is deathly allergic to the truth.
Right.
I've said on this show repeatedly, I wouldn't trust anything Trump said if his tongue was notarized. So there's that. Number two, you think he's trying to avoid debates?
I think he's trying to avoid anything and everything. And there's so many other questions I have, but absolutely, if he can avoid a debate at this point, because he understands, I think that, well, honestly, I don't know. When I really think about that hard, I feel like lately he's not really after the votes. So losing voters at those debates might not be a bad thing for him, because what he's really after is the power and the control. He's after the violence and the anger from his supporters.
That's pretty much what it is at this point. Because, and we might as well get right into talking about the debate. By the way, I watched about the first 2 minutes of it and turned it off.
We can't call it a debate anymore. It was a show. Every single person labeled it a show, and I think that is the proper word for it. And I know it's supposedly a swear word, but it's been used on every major network because there's nothing else we can call it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to use the military term clusterfuck.
I like that one.
Because that works too. Yeah, this was, like I said, after 2 minutes of hearing Donald Trump talk over the top of Joe Biden, I had enough. I'm like, nope, I already know where this is going. I've seen this before. This is a repeat. This is not a new episode. Click, turned it over.
But that's the thing. That was all he needed. He just wants that platform to get up and show how mean and tough he is, right? It's not about logic or plans or caring about any of us. His people that support him, they just want to win. They want him to be the toughest, the meanest. And that's what he's showing him he can do.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's the one thing that drives me crazy. I've been doing radio for over 8 years now. I've been in broadcasting off and on for over 30 years. It's the one thing that drives me absolutely nuts is when two people are talking into a microphone at the same time. And I'm going to pop my local listeners here. If I wanted to listen to two people talk at the same time, I would listen to back episodes of The Boiling Kettles. Because, sorry, I'll call it, Nate, you did it to me, and I cut you off this show about 4 years ago when you tried talking over the top of me, and I just hung up on him. I said, nope, you do that on your show. Don't do it on mine.
Keep in mind, though, I mean, he doesn't, with Trump, he doesn't even focus on facts, logic, none of the things. I saw a reporter the other night asking him, about the comment that he made regarding finding ballots in the river. Right.
Which is complete fabrication.
Well, and that's the thing. The reporter kept asking him, I just need to understand, what river was this? Where on earth was this river? And his press secretary was like, clearly coached not to discuss the fact that he misspoke, that it was not a river. Supposedly somebody found these things in a ditch, but nobody knew who. So he said, I need to know who they are and where this river is, right? And nobody would give him an answer. And that's the thing. All of these normal things, like, the press is here to give people facts. Mm-hmm. These are all now thrown out the window. So a debate isn't to actually hear one person talk. It's just to watch Donald Trump assault the other guy on stage. That's the new normal.
Exactly. Well, there have been ballots thrown in the river.
Well, the best part, if you look into it, it was 7 ballots. So It's very possible, in my opinion, that a mailman threw 7 ballots out.
I believe the story was, and it did come out on nightly news the following night, that it happened in Pennsylvania. It was a election clerk that accidentally threw away 9 ballots that were submitted by members of the military.
Okay.
That person has been fired, and it was an accident.
And that's what I was going to say. Whether it was a mailman or an election clerk, those possibilities are there. So to say that the U.S. Postal Service makes our elections less legitimate, that's crap. I mean, there's going to be humans involved any way you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, the post office, I really would like to get after them for a minute because I keep having stuff that I have purchased on eBay and it gets missent. I've had 2 in the last month now.
Don't say that.
I just had to call. This is why when I buy anything on eBay, I contact the seller first. If they're sending it first class, I say, will you change that to priority mail? Because if it's priority mail, 1, you've got tracking on it. 2, you've got insurance on it.
Yes, and it comes right away. Priority mail has still been very... I don't have my words today. Efficient.
Very reliable.
Reliable. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so I bought a package, and somehow it ended up in Hamilton, Michigan.
Great.
So I had to call the Hamilton post office, say, okay, I've been tracking this, and you guys got this, and it's not supposed to be in your area. Well, we can do one of 2 things. We can either hold on to it for you, you can come and get it, or we can send it back to Grand Rapids. I said, send it back to Grand Rapids and let them try it again.
Yeah.
Now, they actually got it right this time, so unbelievable.
I'm waiting on a passport. And
twice in a month. Folks, I'm sorry. Flat sorting machines don't screw up that badly unless they either don't have enough clerks that are clearing the bins, or they've got clerks that are supposed to be clearing the bins that are sitting around either playing on their phone or yakking or whatever. But that's what you get when you stop running tests to hire people at the post office. Sorry, that's how it is. When you take everybody, then you get what you get.
And our postal service does our passport system, so I really don't want a private company in charge of that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
There's so many things I've been worrying about lately, thinking about possibility of privatizing postal service. It's terrifying.
Yes, it is. We need to keep the postal service as a quasi-governmental agency.
Yes, we need oversight of this stuff, friends. I mean, clearly, if we don't have it, they're just stealing it from underneath us and keeping it.
We need oversight more than ever now because Trump's got one of his lackeys in there.
Yeah, everywhere he's got one.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, since we've been talking about the post office, I have this story. This is by Kaylin Dees, writing for The Hill. This is dated September 24th. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy said U.S. Postal Service mail sorting machines dismantled earlier this year would not be put back together. That's according to a report from Bloomberg. Judge Stanley Bastian of Yakima, Washington, issued a nationwide injunction last week to temporarily halt changes to Postal Service policies that have resulted in mail delivery delays across the country. DeJoy and the Postal Service said Wednesday in a filing to be considered by the judge that the injunction should be amended to acknowledge the machines cannot be put back together. The Postmaster General stated that the old machines were stripped for parts to improve or repair other sorting machines. The filing read, quote, "It is therefore not possible to return such machines to service," end of quote. Yeah, they're just stripping the parts off of it to use on other machines. Let me tell you something. I've worked on those machines as a clerk for nearly 6 years. I know those machines like the back of my hand. I know the mechanics that have repaired those machines. Those machines have brand new parts sitting in the maintenance office waiting to be installed in case a belt breaks, an auger burns out, or a paddle breaks. They've got the spare parts right there. They do not need to strip any machine of parts. By the way, they didn't do that. They just took them and threw them in the trash.
Yeah, we saw photos of them.
Yes.
And do you, having experience with those machines, could you see that they had not been stripped at all?
Not at all.
Okay. So they were exactly how they were supposed to be, completely assembled when you saw them in the trash.
Yeah, especially the ones sitting on the second floor back dock of the Grand Rapids downtown post office.
Yeah, and they most likely would have stripped them of those parts before they left them out on the back dock, one would think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Judge Bastian has yet to rule on DeJoy's filing, according to Bloomberg. The injunction made by Bastian last week came after the Postmaster General announced sweeping changes to the Postal Service in July, sparking outrage from critics and Democrats who argued that the changes were meant to undermine the upcoming presidential election and aid Donald Trump. And we're seeing more of the aiding of Donald Trump. Did you hear what's going on in Texas?
I don't think so.
Governor Abbott has now restricted the collection boxes for ballots to 1 per county.
Oh, nice.
So some people are going to have to drive a long distance if they want to drop their ballots off. Mm-hmm. They're not working for you, folks. They're criminals. I'll call them what they are. Abbott in Texas, Trump, they're criminals. They're crooks.
They are, and they're not, we can't just think that we've got until November 3rd at this point. This man is amping up his rhetoric. Every time I see him speak in public, he is more violent. He is advocating more violence. I've said for years, I do not like Joe Biden. I don't think he's going to be a great president, but he does not publicly incite violence. He does not publicly incite people to hurt each other, which is what we are seeing every day. This can't be okay.
Yeah, actually, I've got the story here. This is Nicole Villarreal writing for NBC News, dated October 1st. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Republican, ordered counties to stop accepting hand-delivered absentee ballots at more than one location, issuing a proclamation that could make it harder for residents to vote early. The proclamation, which goes into effect Friday, modifies part of Abbott's July 27th order that added 6 days of early absentee voting in the state in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Fellow Republicans in Texas are challenging the additional early voting days in court. After concerns were raised about the reliability of the U.S. Postal Service, voters have increasingly indicated a desire to use drop-off sites to ensure the votes are counted while avoiding the possible crowds on Election Day. Abbott said he issued the new order to ensure the security of the ballots, which Donald Trump has questioned as Americans have embraced early and absentee voting in response to the pandemic. Trump continues to sow distrust about the outcome of the election by casting doubt without evidence on the integrity of the system. Oh, they're throwing the ballots in the river.
Yeah.
No, they're bullshit.
Well,
they're not.
He's calling the Proud Boys out to watch the polls, which my fear is as this ramps up, the Proud Boys aren't going to wait to watch the polls. They're going to start surrounding collection boxes. They're going to start surrounding clerks' offices. We need to be prepared for the reality here because they are prepared. The alt-right, the militias, they are preparing and they have been for months. Friends, careful.
Yeah. Yep, I know. And I tell you what, I'm going to read something that I found elsewhere on Facebook because some of you might need this. This is a phone number for you to call and instructions to use if somebody tries to block your access to the ballots, saying,
very good information.
Because guess what? It's a violation. Voting is your right as a citizen. If an alleged poll watcher tries to impede you at the voting booth, 1, tell him to kindly step out of the way. 2, take his picture with a cell phone. 3, call the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division voting section. Toll-free number, 800-253-3931. Here's what I do. Somebody blocks me, you guarantee they're going down because I'm going to be kicking them right in the nuts.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for sure there's that, but I worry more about people just being blocked by force. You know, if they've got a gun and you don't, then what are you going to do? You know?
I'm going to take their gun. I'm going to stick it where the sun don't shine.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, you're also the strong guy. You know,
no, I'm just insane.
Same
I'm
here.
just,
which is why I'm not so worried about myself.
Hey, I've been in a mental institution. I don't give a about anything at this point.
I've just been in enough domestic abusive relationships that I've learned to hold my own.
No, I'm serious, and this is why voting early is important. As I said last week, if you're in the state of Michigan, you can track your ballot from start to finish by going to the Secretary of State website. I did it.
Yep.
You can track it by your first and last name, your month and year that you were born, and the zip code that you're in. Or if you're a nerd like me and you automatically remember what your driver's license number is, you can track it through that too. It will show you that you're registered to vote, where you're registered to vote, who your clerk is, when you requested that an absentee ballot be sent to you, when it was mailed out, and when your clerk received it.
Very good. Very
so
good stuff.
It all has to be tracked.
Yeah, and the good part is that if you do that, then you get the absentee ballot sent to you for the rest of your life. Like, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It will just come.
And by the way, if you do request an absentee ballot, if you're on the permanent list, it will also show on that website that you are on the permanent list. So that's a good thing, too. Yeah, folks, don't be fooled by the Republicans, by the conservatives.
We got victories in it's 2018 that we got this victory, I believe, for the absentee voting.
Absolutely,
and
it was.
People worked really, really hard for every win we got, and we're going to need to capitalize off them, maximize the power that we have, because at this point, we're losing it quickly.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, I want to get into this. So since we've been talking a lot about Trump this morning, I have this story. This is David Leonhardt writing for the New York Times. This was originally published on September 27th and was updated on September 30th. The New York Times has obtained tax return data for Donald Trump and his companies that covers more than 2 decades. Trump has long refused to release this information, making him the first president in decades to hide basic details about his finances. His refusal has made his tax returns among the most sought-after documents in recent memory. Among the key findings of the New York Times investigation, Trump paid no federal income taxes in 11 of 18 years that the New York Times examined. In 2017, after he became president, his tax bill was $750. That's less than most people pay.
Oh, yeah,
and they make a hell of a lot less.
Yeah, that's less than I think our family paid in the last time. I can't remember exactly what the amount was, but it's ridiculous.
He paid Stormy Daniels more than he paid the IRS.
And you know what's really crazy is that this has been one of the biggest headlines since before he was elected. And this week was so insane that I had forgotten it even happened, that they actually got a hold of his tax returns.
And here's the funny thing, is that in my Facebook memories this morning, there was an article from 2 years ago talking about Trump's tax returns.
It's been five years that we've been trying to get a hold of this information, and it was overshadowed by the other insanity that happened this week.
When Trump was 3 years old, he was making the money back then would be the equivalent today of $200,000 at the age of 3.
Year?
At the age of 3.
He was making 10 times more than I've made in my life. That's nice.
If you adjusted those dollars to today's dollars for inflation. Yes. Continuing the story from the New York Times. He has reduced his tax bill with questionable measures, including a $72.9 million tax refund that is the subject of an audit by the Internal Revenue Service.
Hold on. You're telling me he got an $80 million refund?
72.9
Oh, 72.9.
million. Yes.
73, basically. $1 million refund.
Yes.
What?
Oh, and I'll get to that
He's
in a
only
minute
got
here.
one dependent. I do not understand.
Yeah. Many of his signature businesses, including his golf courses, report losing large amounts of money, losses that have helped him to lower his taxes. The financial pressure on him is increasing as hundreds of millions of dollars in loans he personally guaranteed are soon coming due.
Oh, my.
Even while declaring losses, he has managed to enjoy a lavish lifestyle by taking tax deductions on what most people would consider personal expenses, including residences, aircraft, and $70,000 in hairstyling for television. He claimed $70,000 in his hair.
Okay, here's the thing, because I'm so mad right now. And I'm not so mad because I'm shocked to hear this about Donald Trump. Nope. I would have completely expected that, right? What I'm really mad about is I'm thinking about all the people locally that are following his template right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's been doing it for years. He's been the president for 5. I can name
just about 4
development companies in town right now that have done nothing but file bankruptcy and get tax credits over and over and over. These are the same people that currently have our whole downtown shut down and are redeveloping the whole place on our dime. So it's not just him. When we have a president that we let do this, it just trickles down. We lose everything.
Yep. Ivanka Trump, while working as an employee of the Trump Organization, appears to have received consulting fees that also help reduce the family's tax bill. As president, he has received more money from foreign sources and U.S. interest groups than previously known. The records do not reveal any previously unreported connections to Russia. So he's getting his money from Deutsche Bank, from the Russians, from everybody. Because, I don't want to do banking here. I'm subject to rules and regulations here. He said that.
Oh, I'm sure. That's the thing. He is totally normalizing being a con.
Mm-hmm. It is important to remember that the returns are not an unvarnished look at Mr. Trump's business activity. They are instead his own portrayal of his companies compiled for the IRS, but they do offer the most detailed picture yet available. So then they go into further analysis of each of those bullet points here. So in 2016 and 2017, Trump only paid $750 in taxes each of those 2 years. So $1,500. I know families that pay $1,500 in taxes in half a year.
Yeah, and those families are at poverty level.
Yes.
Poverty level.
Exactly. He has managed to avoid taxes while enjoying the lifestyle of a billionaire, which he claims to be, while his companies cover the cost of what many would consider personal expenses. This tax avoidance sets him apart from most other affluent Americans. Taxes on wealthy Americans have declined sharply over the past few decades, and many use loopholes to reduce their taxes below the statutory rates, but most affluent people still pay a lot of federal income tax. In 2017, the average federal income tax rate for the highest earning 0.001% of tax filers. 1/1000th of 1%.
Yep, that's where we're at with income inequality.
That is the most affluent 1/100,000th slice of the population. Their average income tax rate, 24.1%. That's according to statistics from the Internal Revenue Service.
So, yeah, there's a very small amount of people that do pay a decent amount of taxes.
So when somebody tells you that, the rich pay all the taxes, you can tell them this. No, they don't. You know why? Because it's bullshit. It really is, folks. Let me continue. This is just fascinating stuff here.
Oh, my gosh. I'm just seeing this story, and it's infuriating right now because we're reading about how much he doesn't pay in taxes. But
over the past 2 decades, Donald Trump has paid about $400 million less in combined federal income taxes than a very wealthy person who paid the average for that group each year. Trump may be the wealthiest U.S. president in history, yet he has often paid less in taxes than other recent presidents. Barack Obama and George W. Bush each regularly paid more than $100,000 a year, sometimes much more, in federal income taxes while in office.
Which, not to interrupt, but that is nothing to them. Nothing. And it would be nothing to Donald Trump.
No,
but still, it's more than $750.
It's a drop in the bucket. It's one of us going to McDonald's and ordering a Big Mac.
Right, but also an important point is if you are that rich and you're paying no taxes, aren't you the one defunding the military and the police?
There you go.
I mean, you're the one not paying for it. We're paying them.
Well, Trump's the one that says that if you're in the military, you're losers and suckers. So
that's
there
true.
You go.
If you don't have to pay them, why would you, right?
Mm-hmm. Trump, by contrast, is running a federal government to which he has contributed almost no income tax revenue in many years. Trump did face large tax bills after the initial success of the Apprentice TV show, but he erased most of these tax payments through a refund. Combined, Trump initially paid almost $95 million in federal income taxes over the 18 years. He later managed to recoup most of that money with interest by applying for and receiving a $72.9 million tax refund starting in 2010. And by the way, this is why they're auditing his ass. And I'm going to switch over. I'm going to stop the New York Times story for a minute because I have this story. This is Mary Poppinfuss writing for Huffington Post. This is dated September 28th. Donald Trump once gleefully mocked the fucking stupid IRS after getting a $10 million tax refund check. That is according to his former personal attorney, Michael Cohen.
So, I can't even see him denying this.
Yeah.
He'll come out and tell us he thinks they're the, I won't say it again, but stupid IRS.
Cohen on Sunday tweeted a passage from his book Disloyal following the New York Times bombshell report exposing Trump's astonishingly low and questionable federal income tax payments. Cohen gloated in his tweet that the information in his book has now been confirmed. He also posted a screenshot of a passage describing the time a delighted Trump yucked it up to his attorney about playing the IRS. According to Cohen's book, Trump once showed the lawyer a $10 million IRS refund check, and here's what he said at the time. Quote, "Can you believe how fucking stupid the IRS is? Who would give me a refund of $10 fucking million? They are so stupid." End of quote. Wow.
But that's who he is. Like, he will get up today and say, they are really stupid. They did give me $10 million, and if they're that stupid, I'm going to take it.
Mm-hmm. Cohen noted in the book that Trump was almost certainly illegally evading taxes at the time. Almost certainly illegally is a direct quote from Cohen.
Is it because he's disbarred now that he can just totally throw the attorney-client privilege thing out the window? Is that how that works?
I don't know. Cohen is currently serving a 3-year sentence at home because of COVID-19.
Oh, poor guy.
For felony offenses, including violating campaign finance laws and lying to Congress about the Russia investigation, which he has said was at Trump's behest. There was no immediate response from the White House to Cohen's tweet. Trump on Sunday dismissed the New York Times story as fake news. Of course he did, because he always does. No, the only thing that's fake is your hair there, buddy. And your tan. And your marriage. And that you've got coronavirus, my opinion. It's all fake. You're a fake. Look in the mirror. Oh.
Trash.
Worse than trash. Cyrus Vance Jr., the Manhattan District Attorney, is seeking Trump's returns as part of an investigation into possible tax fraud involving Trump and his company. Well, I guess all I got to do is read the New York Times now, don't they?
Oh, my goodness.
This is something else. Let me go back to the New York Times story because they go into further detail. Trump classifies much of the spending on his personal lifestyle as the cost of business. His residences are part of the family business, as are the golf courses where he spends so much time. He has classified the cost of his aircraft used to shuttle him among his homes as a business expense as well. Haircuts, including more than $70,000 to style his hair during The Apprentice, have fallen into the same category. So did almost $100,000 paid to a favorite hair and makeup artist of Ivanka Trump. All of this helps to reduce Trump's tax bill further because companies can write off business expenses. Seven Springs, his estate in Westchester County, New York, typifies his aggressive definition of business expenses. Trump bought the estate in Bedford, New York in 1996. By the way, this estate covers over 200 acres. I have farmers that live around me that don't have nearly that much.
Right.
His sons, Eric and Donald Jr., spent summers living there when they were younger. Eric told Forbes in 2014, quote, "This is really our compound." End of quotes. Oh, God. The Trump Organization website continues to report, quote, "Today, Seven Springs is used as a retreat for the Trump family." End of quote. Yeah, I wish they'd retreat.
We all do.
Mm-hmm. And take Pence with you. And all your Proud Boys, or as I call them, doo-doo browns, because they're too busy licking Trump where the sun doesn't shine.
Truth.
Yeah. Let me see. Across nearly all of his projects, Trump's company set aside about 20% of income for unexplained consulting fees. These fees reduce taxes because companies are able to write them off as a business expense, lowering the amount of final profit subject to tax. Trump collected $5 million on a hotel deal in Azerbaijan, for example, and reported $1.1 million in consulting fees. In Dubai, there was a $630,000 $3 on $3 million in income. Since 2010, Trump has written off some $26 million in such fees. His daughter appears to have received some of these consulting fees despite having been a top Trump Organization executive. The Times investigation discovered a striking match. Trump's private records show that his company once paid $747,622 in fees to an unnamed consultant for hotel projects in Hawaii and Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Ivanka Trump's public disclosure forms, which she filed when joining the White House staff in 2017, show that she received $747,622 through a consulting company that she co-owned. Right there it is, folks.
But that's exactly what's happening here, too, in our city.
It's the shell game.
Yeah, they're everywhere. And people are worried about socialism, are not paying attention to the fact that, I don't know, like 5 people already own everything.
Late-stage capitalism.
Yeah, come on, guys.
Yeah. No, this is like going to the carnival and playing the shell game. You know, they put a little marble underneath 3 shells, and then you move them around. You have to pick where the marble is.
Yep.
Which shell has the marble? No, that game is rigged. You're rubes. You're losers. You're suckers for this. You're a mark. You're marks for Trump. I'll use wrestling terms. You think you're a smart mark, and you're not. You're not smart, number 1. You're stupid, number 2. You are a mark. Oh, I know this. No, you don't. Oh, God. I got to stop because this is just too much.
It's been a week.
Yes, it has.
It just keeps getting worse. And that's the thing. Like, there used to be things we could depend on, a system of a solution, some path forward, and it is all up in the air right now.
No. I do have one good news story that I really want to share here. This popped up Thursday. This is Ryan Foley writing for the Associated Press. This is coming out of Michigan, but it does involve other states. And we've talked about these 2 guys in the past. 2 notorious conservative operatives were charged Thursday with felonies in connection with false robocalls that aim to dissuade residents in Detroit and other U.S. cities from voting by mail. That is according to Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. 22-year-old Jacob Wohl and 54-year-old Jack Berkman each face 4 felony counts in Detroit, including conspiring to intimidate voters in violation of election law and using a computer to commit crimes. The calls falsely warned residents in majority black Detroit and urban areas in at least 4 other states that voting by mail in the November 3rd election could subject people to arrest, debt collection, and forced vaccinations.
Yeah, okay, dude.
Yeah. The men, who have a history of staging hoaxes and spreading false smears against prominent Democrats and government officials, are not in custody. No date for their arraignments has been set yet.
What did it name them?
It named them.
Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry. I did not hear it.
Yeah, but they're coming. Nessel said that her office would work with local law enforcement to secure their appearances if necessary, saying the men could face arrest and extradition, or they could voluntarily come to Michigan to face the charges. A judge found probable cause Thursday to support the charges, which carry the potential for years in prison and thousands of dollars in fines upon conviction. The computer charges carry up to 7 years apiece, while election law violations could bring up to 5 in all.
Wow.
So let's see, 5 in each. There's 3 counts of 5. That's 15 plus 7 is 22.
Ouch.
Nestle's office warned the public about the calls and launched an investigation in late August after thousands of Detroit residents received them. Wohl and Berkman both denied involvement at the time. Berkman did not immediately reply to a Thursday voicemail seeking comment about the charges. Wohl did not immediately reply to an email. Nestle said the investigation found that Berkman and Wohl created and funded the robocalls in an attempt to deter voters of color from participating in the November election. Attorney General Nestle said, quote, "We're all well aware of the frustrations caused by the millions of nuisance robocalls flooding our cell phones and landlines each day, but this particular message poses grave consequences for our democracy and the principles upon which it was built. Michigan voters are entitled to a full, free, and fair election in November, and my office will not hesitate to pursue those who jeopardize that." End of quote.
Thank God for that.
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking about what it would look like right now with a Pat Miles in office, and I'm very grateful for Nestle's victory. No, I can't even imagine that. I won't say that.
Or Bill Shitty.
Yeah, that's just unimaginable.
Yeah. My favorite. Hi, Bill. I hope you're listening.
Yeah, that would be we'd be in serious trouble if we were in that Michigan right now. So
I've told the audience, I don't know if you've heard this. I went to Bill Schuette's wedding back in 1990.
Oh, no way.
Mm-hmm. I was an intern at Wood TV, and he married Cynthia Grebe, the former news anchor there.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, they were their marriage was at a church right off 44th Street, right by Ziegler Ford, right by Rivertown Crossings Mall. There's a little church there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Which by the way, was videotaped by staff at Wood TV. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it must be nice to have broadcast quality video of your wedding day converted from half-inch beta, professional beta cams.
Wow.
Yeah. Continuing the story, Nestle said 85,000 calls were believed to have been made across the nation. She said nearly 12,000 residents in the 313 area code received the calls in Detroit, and that similar calls also blanketed urban pockets of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, and New York. And she encouraged anyone who received such a call to file a complaint with her office. Wohl and Berkman have a history of supporting Donald Trump and attacking his political opponents. Michigan is a key battleground state that Trump narrowly won in 2016, in part due to a drop in turnout for Hillary Clinton in heavily Democratic Detroit. Let's also just add the 80,000 voters who...
90,000 who showed up and did not select a choice for president.
Well, that was 140,000 that did that.
Stop. I read like 90. It was 140.
Oh yeah. Well, it was a combined 140 between those who
count.
Voted for a write-in ballot that was not on the ballot.
Wow.
And then there was about 80,000 that voted down ticket and skipped the presidential election. But there were 60,000 spoiled ballots because they voted for a write-in candidate that was not.
I think we all know who that was.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders.
I mean, come on. If he'd have been the candidate, we wouldn't have a problem.
Yep. In Michigan, voters can cast an absentee ballot for any reason, either by mailing it in, dropping it off, or filling one out at a clerk's office. The caller identified herself as part of Project 1559 and said it was a group founded by Wohl and Berkman. The calls falsely claimed that voting by mail would result in personal information going into databases that will be used by police to resolve old warrants, credit card companies to collect debts, and federal officials to track mandatory vaccines.
Oh, wow.
The caller said, quote, "Don't be finessed into giving your private information to the man. Beware of vote by mail." End of quote. Wow. Somebody is actually still using the man.
Oh, yeah.
As a phrase.
They're bringing back, the Patriots are bringing back a lot of phrases we haven't heard in a while.
God, yeah, no kidding.
We might as well call them the settlers because they think they're just resettling the place, I think.
The doo-doo Browns. Yeah. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, like Nessel, a Democrat, in August called the robocalling effort, quote, an unconscionable, indefensible, blatant attempt to lie to citizens about their right to vote, end of quote. She praised Nessel for a swift investigation Thursday, saying the charges show that the state will, quote, use every tool at our disposal to dispel false rhetoric, end of quote, and protect voting rights.
Pay attention to the proposals on your ballots this year, folks. I know in our city there are 2 proposals that will regard voting rights that are going to help increase access to voting, but we've already got big campaigns going. We woke up to a sign in our front yard to vote no on one of these proposals just the other day. Very nice, professional, well-paid-for sign. So they are working hard on a local, state, and federal level to suppress votes.
Investigators served search warrants in California, where Wohl lives, in Los Angeles, as part of the inquiry last week, Nessel said. Wohl and Berkman have made a name for themselves by orchestrating political dirty tricks and hoaxes, including spreading false claims of sexual misconduct by Robert Mueller and Pete Buttigieg. Just last month, the Washington Post said that it was duped into falsely reporting that FBI agents had conducted a raid at Berkman's home in Arlington, Virginia, when it was actually a staged event featuring actors.
Jeez, that is really, really extremely messed up.
In August, Wohl told the Associated Press that they suspect, quote, leftist pranksters, end of quote, were behind the robocalls because recipients were shown a caller ID that was Berkman's mobile number. Berkman called the situation, quote, a joke, end of quote, saying nobody would use their mobile number for a robocall and threatened to sue Benson for defamation.
Oh my gosh, you cannot make this up.
This isn't the first time the two have come under scrutiny in Michigan. Last year, a Michigan college student said the duo recruited him to falsely claim that he was raped by then Democratic presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg, and then published the smear without the student's permission. We talked about that right on this show.
Trash.
Yeah, we warned you about these two. God. How mentally ill do you have to be to stage an FBI raid of your house?
No, it's not even mentally ill. That's just, I mean, it's a mix of
It's
ignorance,
cunning.
racist, greed.
It's cunning is what it is.
It is cunning. And when you tie that in with the evil intentions that they have, that's scary.
And yet Trump gets on Twitter and calls the networks fake news, the New York Times fake news, everybody's fake news.
He's got to delegitimize everything but himself, you know?
Mm-hmm. By the way, Associated Press writer David Eggert also contributed to this story. He was in Lansing, Michigan. So, yeah, folks, this is what happens with conservatives, Republicans. This is their MO. This is their playbook. You need to pay attention to this. Speaking of, I want to get to this story. This is Ken Klippenstein writing for The Nation. This is dated September 25th. I think this came out after we finished recording last week's show. On Monday, The Nation reported that the Department of Homeland Security intercepted protesters' phone communications in Portland this summer. Senator Ron Wyden sent a letter to the Department of Homeland Security demanding answers. As Wyden explained to The Nation in an email, quote, there are still a lot of questions about what DHS has been doing in Portland, but I'm pushing hard for answers. The bottom line is it would be totally unacceptable, illegal, and unconstitutional for the Trump administration to spy on people because of their political beliefs, end of quote.
No doubt in my mind, anything they're doing in Portland, they're doing here. Mm-hmm. We're a border city, just like they are. We have DHS very much everywhere around here. Mm-hmm. I deleted every messaging app from my phone, aside from Facebook, and that's only because I really just talk to my family there. Mm-hmm. I don't trust anything anymore. I know with the amount of surveillance I see, the towers going up, the cameras going up, the antennas going up, I think they can probably see anything they want to, whether it's Signal or WhatsApp or, WeChat, any of the messaging apps. So be careful.
Yeah. Wyden, a U.S. Senator representing Oregon, serves on the Senate Intelligence Committee responsible for conducting oversight of the intelligence community. The letter, addressed to DHS Acting Secretary Chad Wolf and signed by both Wyden and Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley, contains a list of detailed questions relating to the intelligence operations reported by the nation earlier in the week. The first question concerns former DHS intelligence chief Brian Murphy, who it says declined to confirm to the committee that his agency, quote, had neither collected nor exploited or analyzed information obtained from the devices or accounts of protesters or detainees, end of quote, as he had stated in a briefing in July. The letter goes on to ask whether the DHS extracted data from protesters' phones, if it later analyzed this data, and whether it obtained authorization from a judge to do so. The letter begins by stating, quote, a recent article in The Nation alleges that an interagency task force involving DHS and the Department of Justice conducted surveillance of protesters' phones in Portland, end of quote. As we reported on Monday, the DHS conducted a cell phone cloning attack in order to intercept Portland protesters' phone communications this summer. The letter notes that these activities would qualify as unconstitutional. So, yeah, they're apparently cloning phones.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I've said it. Like, it's really scary. They've had drones right directly over the top of us during the protests in June. Come on, those cameras can go right down and see your phone if you've got it in your hand, you guys. Like, and they can act like they're not looking at that stuff, but we don't have any oversight. What are the 8 million antennas on top of our police station there for? Mm-hmm. What are they doing? Are they talking to China at the Grand Rapids Police Department? Because they've got enough antennas to do it, pardon my language.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, really, you've seen them going up, so.
It's nuts. It's really nuts.
It is.
And here's the thing. I'm looking at the Planning Commission maps, okay, and the Planning Commission meetings. Now, it has been in the past to put up a cell phone antenna, radio communications tower, you have to go to the Planning Commission and ask for permission, okay? Mm-hmm. But what's been happening is these supposed cell phone companies, which I don't know that they are cell phone companies, because companies like Triple Canopy and Constellus, which are now, they were merged with Blackwater years ago, they actually are opening LLCs with the names of like Verizon. So I am concerned that they're going to the Planning Commission and asking to put up cell phone towers on the streetlights, right? Because there's a bunch of applications from Verizon, LLC. But then when I went and looked, it turns out they didn't approve them because we don't actually own our streetlights.
Who owns them?
That's the thing. It's a private company who they didn't name.
Jeez.
Which means they don't have to go to the Planning Commission to get permission to put up a cell phone tower now. They go to a private company.
Wow.
Yeah, so we don't know where they're at, and I don't know that we have the oversight we used to.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to read a portion of that letter that was sent. It reads like this. Congress has enacted strict legal protections that require government agencies to obtain the approval of an independent judge before searching Americans' devices and surveilling their communications absent an emergency. That is to prevent the government from suppressing legitimate free speech protected by the First Amendment and violating Americans' rights to privacy, which is protected by the Fourth Amendment. These recent reports, which allege that the DHS has deployed high-tech surveillance technologies against protesters in Portland, raise serious concerns, which Congress has a responsibility to investigate.
But
that's
what good is that going to do us if it's absent an emergency? Because all that means is that Donald Trump has to declare an emergency. And that's what they do every single time there starts to be people protesting. It's, we have to declare an emergency.
Yeah. And that's pretty much how it works at this point. You know, and since we're talking about surveillance, and you had mentioned on the ballot, is Proposal 2 is a statewide ballot in Michigan that would make it unconstitutional under the state constitution, I believe. It would make it illegal for police to surveil your cell phone without getting a warrant first. Like if you get arrested and they seize your cell phone, they have to get a warrant to examine it before they do. Which is
how it should be. Your whole life is there now.
So this would codify it into law.
Oh, okay.
This Proposal 2 would.
So we're voting yes on 1 and 2, if from what I've heard.
Well, 1, I'm kind of.
This is the city.
No, this is for the statewide as well.
Okay. Yep. Statewide Proposal 1 is the proposal that is the oil and gas money that they're going to. Okay, and so that is basically we're going to vote no on that one.
Yeah. Because
that is actually a pro oil and gas, and then the second proposal it sounds like I'm going to vote yes on. So good to know. Thanks.
Yep. And since we're talking about that, I want to get to this story since we're talking about surveillance in Michigan. I've got Steve Niebling writing for the Detroit Metro Times. I love it when I start reading stories from them because they just rake the muck. They don't care who they offend.
Right, dig right in.
This is dated September 28th. Opponents of Detroit's facial recognition system, which has misidentified suspects and led to their false imprisonment, plan to make some noise ahead of the city council's scheduled vote to extend a contract on the technology software Tuesday. The protest group Detroit Will Breathe began an online petition calling for the city to stop using the technology, which opponents say is unreliable, racially biased, and constitutionally dubious.
Yep.
They had 1,600 supporters signing that petition by Monday morning, or they were pretty close to it.
The facts are so clear on this. I mean, the facial recognition cameras disproportionately misidentify black people. It is black and white. It's very clear. Any of the research, there's absolutely no reason this should be deployed in a police department until it actually maybe not ever.
And by the way, I've got an update to this story. This is Eli Newman writing for WDET Radio, Michigan Radio, National Public Radio. The Detroit Police Department's use of facial recognition will continue uninterrupted after a contentious city council vote. The board approved a 2-year, $220,000 maintenance contract with DataWorks Plus, the software developer of the technology. We've talked about this on the show previously. By the way, Bernie Sanders would abolish facial recognition technology use by law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So, good job, Dems. Thanks a lot.
Hey, there's a reason Bernie has not been a candidate, and it's mostly...
Mm-hmm. The vote followed a sustained campaign by activists calling to defund the police by targeting Detroit Public Police Department's surveillance programs. So I wonder how the vote turned out. And of course, it doesn't say. Doesn't say what the vote was.
Because the commissioners, they don't really want to be picked out individually.
Mm-hmm.
They're commissioners to me now. I'm no longer calling them commissioners because it seems they're all tied into something.
Yeah. Researchers at Georgetown Law estimate Michigan State Police has access to about 45 million facial images, including driver's license photos. That's a lot. Detroit police say facial recognition has been used 106 times this year and has assisted in making 12 arrests in that time. Yeah,
but they're taking your picture every time you go under a traffic light. Every single time you or anybody else goes under a traffic light, they're snapping a photo, and 107 of them have turned into something? Like, come on.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing that I'm glad that Michigan hasn't done, and I hope they never do this, is the traffic light cameras, where they just send you a ticket in the mail, because Ohio does this.
Right, and yeah, it's been from other states they've been doing it. I've questioned for a long time why they're not doing that with them, and I would, if I had to guess, I would say it's because they didn't want people to oppose those cameras when they would rather use them for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they were doing it with the parking stuff. Remember, the city of Grand Rapids tried to install the software to scan license plates just driving by, so that they could catch you if you had tickets.
Oh, they've got that on all the police cruisers in the city of Grand Rapids.
Right, but it was like the parking meters parking made people.
The meter readers.
Yeah, meter readers. They were going to do that to them too, so that.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
What were they going to do? Give them body cameras and say, here.
They might have almost eliminated most of their jobs, actually. That might have been the plan, just to have them inside watching on camera, or have the camera identify when somebody.
Mm-hmm. And people wonder why they don't shop downtown Grand Rapids anymore. Unbelievable.
Well, now you can't get to downtown Grand Rapids because they closed it for the summer.
That's true. Yeah, they might have closed her forever at this point.
I mean, yeah.
Hell.
I'm still thinking about it, actually. I've got the stuff in my car to go put a sign up on that road closed sign that just says, Oligarch Drive, billionaires only, no taxpayers allowed.
There you go. Well, I got a couple of stories I want to get to before we wrap up today. This first one is Minya Von Burke writing for NBC News. This is dated September 26th. A Maryland man was sentenced to a year in jail for throwing parties at his home that violated the governor's coronavirus restrictions on gatherings. 42-year-old Sean Marshall Myers was arrested in March after having two parties at his home in Hughesville in southern Maryland that each had at least 50 people in attendance. At the time, Governor Larry Hogan's emergency order prohibited gatherings of more than 10 people. Officers were initially called to the home on March 22nd for a report of a large gathering. That's according to State's Attorney for Charles County, Tony Covington. So the cops showed up, told them that the party violated the mandate. Apparently, he was argumentative with the officers, but he agreed to break up the party. A couple days later, throws another party. Cops get called. They said, shut it down. He refused, got argumentative with the cops, and they arrested his ass.
Interesting.
Yep.
Too bad they don't do that to Donald Trump when he throws a party with, 100 times more people.
Exactly. A judge convicted Myers Friday after a bench trial on 2 counts of failure to comply with an emergency order. So he's going to serve a year in the county jail, pay a $5,000 fine, and he's going to be on unsupervised probation for 3 years after his release.
Whoa.
The prosecutor Covington said this, quote, "These decisions were made for the public good, for people's safety. We've got 200,000 people dead because of the attitudes that Mr. Myers demonstrated that particular day. It's not like the police just swooped in there and said you're going to jail. They gave him a warning. He had at least 50 people the first day, and then 2-3 days later, he's doing the same thing." End of quote.
That's truth.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this. I just saw a headline from the Washington Post that says Trump is experiencing mild symptoms of COVID-19. I'm really happy because maybe they'll get more extreme.
Well, we can hope.
Mild is better than nothing.
And I've seen it online, people saying, "Oh, don't be mean. When they go low, we go high."
No. We try to save the world when we see that it's at the brink of distinction. That's what we do.
We tried it. It didn't work. We're doing something else. And then we've got one final story. This is off the cuff this week. This was actually published by WZZM Television. This is from the Associated Press in London. A British zoo has had to separate 5 foul-mouthed parrots who keepers say were encouraging each other to swear. Billy, Eric, Tyson, Jane, and Elsie joined Lincolnshire Wildlife Center's colony of 200 gray parrots in August and soon revealed a penchant for blue language. So, oh my God, this is hilarious. The zoo's chief executive, Steve Nichols, said, quote, "We are quite used to parrots swearing, but never have we had 5 at the same time. Most parrots clam up outside, but for some reason these 5 relish it." End of quote. There have not been any visitor complaints. Most people have found the situation funny. He added this, "When a parrot swears at someone, quote, it amuses people very highly. It brought a big smile to a really hard year." End of quote. They said the parrots had been separated to save children's ears, and they were moved to different areas of the park so that they don't set each other off.
I want to know what they're talking about.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, my God. I'm surprised one of them wasn't named Donald.
Maybe.
After Trump, Oh, good Lord. Well, we are out of time for this week. We'll be back next week with more fun and hijinks. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Katy Steele Brony for Jack Prince.
And for our announcer, Kristen Cook, please support independent media and the First Amendment. And please wear your mask, folks.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.